and that you're writing your notes in your workbook that go along with this video. We're going to start on workbook page 165. It should look like this, workbook page 165. So this page is saying for problems 5 through 7, find the approximate circumference of the circle. Use 3.1 as the constant number. So these notes are not in your workbook. This is what you should be writing down. The circumference of a circle is the distance around the outside of the circle. It's like saying the perimeter of the circle. So it's if I were walking around the edge of this circle, or if I was building a fence around this circle, or something like that. So finding the circumference of a circle. So please pause the video and write these things in your workbook. So finding the circumference of a circle is another formula that we have on our MCAS reference sheet. So it's not anything that you're going to have to memorize just yet. So looking at the MCAS reference sheet, I can scroll down to this section here where we're talking about the circle formulas, and we can see that it says circumference of a circle is equal to 2 times pi times r, or pi times d. So now we have to recognize and realize what those things mean. Let me actually put those formulas on this page though, so that way you can also write it in your notebook. So circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius, or, right, or, sorry, this is kind of messy. I'm having a hard time with my mouse today. Circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So now it's important to talk about what those words actually mean. So the radius of a circle is the distance that we're actually being shown here. This distance from the center of the circle to the, oops, if that was a straight line, to the edge of the circle is the radius. Let me just erase that. So this, what we have here in this image on page 165, we have the radius. We're being given the radius already. So the radius is 5. So we're going to stick with just using that formula for now and practice that one. So we're going to be using this formula here because in our picture that we're being given, we are being given the radius. Also, this is circle problems normally are problems that you would use a calculator on. But in this case, it's telling us to use 3.1 as the constant, meaning it wants us to use 3.1. Oops, sorry, not for r. It wants us to use 3.1 for pi. So normally pi is usually represented by 3.14 if we're abbreviating it, but for some reason here they want you to use 3.1. So what we're doing then is we're going to say, okay, we're trying to find the circumference. So circumference is equal to 2 times pi, which I can't put in here, um, times the radius, which is 5. So let me actually just, so I was trying to make things neater, but so 2 times pi times 5. But since we're using 3.14 as a constant, we can then say, oh, what we're doing is the circumference is equal to 2 times 3.1 times 5. So this is the math that we are doing in this particular problem. So I'm just going to quickly go out of order a little bit, and I'm going to first say, okay, well, what's 2 times 5? Well, 2 times 5 is equal to 10. So now I have the circumference is equal to 10 times 3.1. And then I can easily do that without a calculator as well and say that, let me make it, I'll keep this. So now I can say, well, the circumference of this circle is equal to 31 inches, right? Because we're talking about inches here. So this would actually be the solution to this problem when it's asking us to find the circumference of this circle and using 3.1 as a constant, and we were given the radius. So this problem is complete. Let's turn the page and take a look at the next problem. So now it's asking us to do the same thing. We're still problems 5 through 7, so we're still finding the circumference. And keeping in mind, we had those two formulas that we can use. So we can either use the formula that circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius, or we can use the formula that the circumference is, equal to, I don't know why this is being weird all of a sudden, pi, just do this, times the diameter. Let me actually erase this one and make it a little bit clearer because it's kind of hard to see what this said. Let me do that R again. So in the case of this circle, we're being given the radius, but in the case of this circle, we're actually being given the diameter. So let's go back to the other picture and we can talk about, well, what is the diameter of a circle, right? We have not talked about that yet. It should be a review term, but just in case, the diameter is 2 times the radius. So if I were talking about the diameter of a circle, I'm talking about the distance from one edge of the circle to the other edge of the circle that's going to go through the center. So in this case, this would be the diameter of this particular circle, right? This distance from here to here. Diameter is always 2 times the radius, it's double. So in the case of this circle, my diameter would be 10. Okay? So that's what diameter represents. That's what diameter means. Make sure you're drawing that in on this circle before moving on. So here we are being asked, okay, a circle that has the diameter of 4.1. So we are going to be using this formula here, where their circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. But of course, it told us to use, instead of using circumference, it told us to use, or excuse me, instead of using pi, it told us to use 3.14. So we're going to say, okay, the circumference is equal to, 3.1. 3.1 is what it told us to use times the diameter. Well, the diameter in this case is 4.1. And then it's just a multiplication problem. You're just multiplying these two numbers together. So what is 3.1 times 4.1? In this case, the diameter is equal, excuse me, the circumference is equal to 12.71. And in this case, we're talking about feet. So the diameter would, or excuse me, the circumference would be equal to 12.71 feet. Now switching over to problem number 7, we have a radius. So that means we are going to be using the formula at the top. So again, it just depends what you're being given. And these are just multiplication problems. So circumference equals 2 times pi, but instead of pi, we're going to use 3.1 times the radius, which in this case is 20.5. So we're going to start multiplying those numbers together. Circumference equals 2 times 3.1 is 6.2. I have three numbers to multiply here, and then I'll be multiplying 6.2 times 20.5 in order to get the circumference of this circle. 6.2 times 20.5 is equal to 127.1. And in this case, we are talking about meters. Okay, so your assignment is in Google Classroom. You are going to do workbook pages that start on page 173, I believe, 173. I think until 176, but double check Google Classroom to see the pages that you are going to be working on today.